The reality is 90% of GAA players burn out mid-season. They're smashing strength PBs, they're lifting heavy weights, but then when it comes around to match day, they're feeling burnt out. So in this video, I'm going to show you exactly what in-season strength training should look like, why we need it, and how we can program it, and also cover some of the common mistakes that are associated with it. Now you're probably wondering, who am I and why am I talking about this? Well, I am head of S&C in the Kaizen Academy, and I've worked with hundreds of athletes solve this specific problem because a lot of them come to me with this one. It is something that a lot of athletes struggle with, and I myself, before I got into coaching, has struggled with it before. I definitely fell into some of these common pitfalls, and it led me down a road of picking up knocks, niggles, and also just feeling constantly burnt out. So I definitely have a lot of experience in this, and hopefully I'll be able to solve your specific problem here today as well. So without further ado, what is some of the common mistakes that we see whenever we talk about in-season strength training? Well, there's kind of two sides to the coin. We see the athletes who detrain, and we see the athletes who overtrain. So maybe you can relate to one of these. But firstly, in terms of detraining, oftentimes athletes say that once they go in season, they want to stay fresh for game day, so they'll just leave off their strength work completely. And while I get their logic, this is very, very counterproductive, because you're after building up a level of strength, and by stopping training in the gym, stopping your strength work, this is only going to result in you losing speed, losing strength, obviously, and losing power. Because strength, or the definition of strength, is our ability to produce force, and force is our mass times acceleration. So if we stop training strength, and if we stop giving the body the strength stimulus, we're going to lose our ability to produce force. And to get faster, to get more powerful, force is a key characteristic in that formula. So we really need to maintain that force to keep up our speed, to keep up our strength, to keep up our power. So if you stop training completely, you're going to lose that ability, and it's going to go down across the season. On the flip side then, we see overtraining, and as I said, I've probably fallen into this camp in the past. I have constantly been trying to chase strength PBs, hammering gym work, trying to build muscle, trying to build strength in season, and just loading that on top of a heavy game schedule and fixture list, which was definitely not the best idea to do. So by overtraining, also we're going to reduce our speed, strength and power, simply because there's going to be too much fatigue on the body, and come match day, come training days, you're going to be so fatigued that you won't have the same ability to apply that, and you are going to see decrements in your speed, strength and power because of this fatigue, and also it puts you at a serious risk of injury. So why do we need in-season strength training? As I kind of touched on there, that we're gonna keep up, or we're gonna at least maintain and even improve our sprinting, our jumping, agility, performance, okay? So if you compare the two athletes, one athlete who stops training completely and one athlete who gets their in-season training correct, then obviously you're going to see a better sprint, jumping performance, agility performance, running performance in the athlete who keeps up their strength work. So that is important to note. Secondly, we also see that stronger athletes won't break down as much, okay? So if you're able to maintain your strength versus someone who's lost a lot of their strength in season, the chances of these picking up non-contact injuries is a lot less. So it is very, very important that we find the sweet spot here in in-season strength training, because that will be a recipe for setting yourself up for success in terms of your speed, your power, your strength, your explosiveness on the field, which is all key characteristics and key performance indicators for GAA. So a couple of guidelines that I want to walk you through. And whenever we're talking about guidelines, and I suppose like this is talking to what we need to do in terms of our in-season strength training. I'm looking at intensity, frequency, and volume mainly. Okay, so if we go to frequency first, if we kind of start at the highest level, really we're talking about 1 to 2 sessions per week is roughly enough frequency to maintain our strength standards and to maintain our strength throughout the in-season. Again, this is where I fell down. I was trying to fit in 3 to 4 gym sessions per week of heavy strength training and lifting heavy across all of them sessions. And whenever you're lifting heavy weight across 3 to 4 sessions per week, that is a serious amount of load on the nervous system that just simply we cannot recover from. Because whenever you're going out onto the pitch and you're playing games, that's also a huge load on your nervous system because you're working at a high intensity. It's putting a huge neurological fatigue on you. And similarly, when you're lifting heavy weights, that's also putting on a huge amount, or that's giving you huge neural stimulation, which also takes a long time to recover from. So generally the sweet spot is around 1 to 2 sessions per week. We've seen in the research with elite soccer players, 1 session per week over a course of 12 weeks was enough to maintain strength and their 40-meter speed. So typically you can fall between that range, and that is sufficient to maintain our strength and speed. In terms of intensity then, how much weight should you be lifting? What's the intensity that you should be working at? And typically we see around 85% plus is within that strength range, and that's what we want to make sure that we hit in season. So we want to try and maintain above that 85%. You can obviously periodize it however you want, working at 85% for 2 weeks, 87.5 for 2 weeks, however you want to program that. But hitting that 85% plus will be enough to make sure that we maintain that strength. And how that happens is that strength training provides a neural stimulation, okay? So it's not so much about volume, it's more about the intensity here. And the intensity is a really key part to this, because in season, as I'll touch on now with the volume aspect, volume is going to be low, but once we're providing enough intensity, that will then give us a neural stimulation to recruit motor units, increase the firing frequency of the motor units, and help us to maintain that strength even with low volume. So moving over to volume then, we want to be aiming for around 2 to 4 sets is sufficient, and 1 to 5 reps on our main lifts. So when we're talking about our strength, as I'll touch on now in a few minutes around the structure, but when we're talking about strength, oftentimes this can be related to mainly our big lifts at the start of the workouts. And that's where we're going to be really kind of going after this specific characteristics, while also we'll be looking at it in our accessory movements. But really when we're talking about, let's say, 85% of a 1RM, and we're really going after our strength stimulus, then we'll be talking around our big main lifts. Okay, so just to summarize that in terms of intensity, frequency, volume, if you're hitting 1 to 2 sessions per week, if you're getting 2 to 4 sets of 1 to 5 reps of around 85% plus of your 1RM, that will be sufficient to maintain your strength across the in-season. Okay, so really this could be changing your mindset a lot. Sorry, coffee's gone cold here, chatting too much. But really this might be changing your mindset a wee bit, because you probably come onto this video thinking you might need to do more. You might need to do 3 to 4 sessions per week. You might need to hit a good lot of volume, and that's the only way to maintain your strength. But it's a lot lower than a lot of people think and a lot of athletes think. So this is quite refreshing to hear. I think it was for myself anyway, because I used to be constantly just chasing more and more volume, because I thought that was going to be the thing to do to try and maintain all of this. But really, once you have built up your strength capacity in the off season, then it's just once you go into the in season, it's about maintaining that, and it's actually a lot easier than some people would think. Now, I have kind of a bonus section over here, and this is something that's a wee bit novel. It's a wee bit newer to the market, and there's not as much research on it just yet, but I do think it's going to be progressing over the next while. And this is just microdosing strength and power units across the week. So rather than doing a massive session or 2 to 3 massive sessions of strength work, what I like to do personally is kind of microdose this across the week. And microdosing is essentially just breaking one big session or a couple of big characteristics or a couple of big blocks of training into smaller units across the week. So what I target is pre-pitch. I target small units before I go out onto the pitch to hit isometrics and to hit power units. Okay, so small blocks of 1 to 2 power exercises. Now, why I do this is, isometrics essentially is just going to help touch the strength stimuli without actually fatigue. So really, but the research yet isn't showing that it's improving our strength or anything like that, but it definitely will touch that strength stimuli without actually causing too much neural fatigue and systemic fatigue, because obviously there's in terms of isometrics, it's going to be producing maximal force without any movement, without any eccentric or concentric movement. So you're just holding that maximal force or that maximal stimulation. So really, it can be good to just give a small hit of strength stimuli without actually causing too much fatigue, compared to, let's say, if you're doing a heavy back squat versus a squat hold. There's going to be a completely different response to that, because you don't have to go, let's say, lower the weight and lift the weight. You're just holding the weight at a set point. Okay. Also, isometrics will help increase our tendon stiffness, which then can also increase our rate of force development. So in season, while we're not looking for a huge amount of volume in, let's say, our main strength session of the week, between your strength session of the week, or your 1 to 2 strength sessions of the week, plus then you add in your isometrics and your power units before your pitch sessions, which can also help you feel more primed and ready to train. They also will touch that strength stimuli, and across the week will help you to maintain that a little bit more effectively. And even a lot of the athletes that I'm working with are seeing improvements in strength across the year, simply because they're including these isometrics and power units pre-training session. And also on the power aspect, that just looks like, as I said, 2 to 3 exercises that are mainly maybe loaded jumps or plyometric variations, and that's going to be working towards increasing our rate of force development. So the two of them combined are really nice for increasing tendon stiffness, and also then touching that strength stimuli without actually causing a huge amount of fatigue. So these two combined, I'm a big fan of. As I said, there's not as much research on it yet, but I do like the way it's trending, and I am definitely a big advocate for including that now at the minute. So just something to consider, on top of your bigger sessions. I really do think the pre-pitch units are an opportunity to top up and to even see improvements in your strength and power by using these microdose units. So how can we periodize it? Well, when I'm going to talk about periodization, I'm really going to break it down into the week. So let's say a microcycle or a mesocycle. And what I would look at here is front loading the week. So I would try and get my strength stimulus or my strength work done at least by match day -3, but probably more so towards match day -5. So if you have a game on a Friday or Saturday, I would normally try and get my strength work done between either Monday or Wednesday at the very latest, and that will allow the body and mind enough time to recover from that. Because obviously, as I said, if we're doing a regular strength training where you have the eccentric, the concentric, and the isometric obviously as well, then you are going to be it's going to take time to recover from that. It's going to put a huge amount of neural stimulation on the body, and that is going to have a cost. Everything has a cost here, so we have to recover from that. So in this session then, that earlier session of the week will be our heavy strength training, and that will be the form that we'll use to try and maintain our strength and maybe see small improvements in it. But I would try and do that as early in the week as possible. So as I said, on a Monday or Wednesday, let's say if you're on the pitch on Tuesday, I would try get that done either side of that, okay? How we can structure out your in-season strength training session then, what I would do here is, it's a very simple flow. I would work with, firstly, go into your movement prep, so a couple of exercises that are helping you to warm up, but also prepare you for the exercise that you're going to be performing next, or the next big exercise. So let's say, for example, if you have a squat jump, or you have a back squat then coming up, I would be looking at trying to loosen out your ankle, or prepare your ankle mobility, prepare your hip mobility, and activate the glutes and quads. So there's a lot of areas that you have to factor in that you want to look at. Okay, where's my movement, or what's the big movements that I'm going after in the session, and how am I going to prepare for them? So that's the first thing in terms of our movement prep. It's preparing you for the movements that's coming up. Then we go into our power block. Okay, so that can be 1 to 2 exercises. That could be your loaded jump variations, your Olympic lifts, your plyometrics. This is all going to be training towards increasing the rate of force development. So strength is going to be our ability to produce force, but power is going to be our ability to produce force quickly. So power is just training that. It's lifting moderate weight, or light to moderate weight, and applying it really fast, or lifting it really fast. So that can be 1 to 2 exercises. Then we have our strength maintenance block. That again can be generally one exercise, like one bilateral compound lift, like your box squat, your trap bar deadlift. Typically are common ones that you see. You have your RDLs obviously as well. But that can be 1 to 2 exercises, and then you're going to be looking for your 2 to 4 sets, 1 to 5 reps, and then 85% plus of your 1RM. Then we have robustness work. Essentially, that's just your accessory movements that's going to support the strength maintenance and support your performance. These can be often quite individualized to you. Maybe you've had previous injuries, or you have specific weaknesses that you would want to work on. That's really where I would put in or include them exercises there in the robustness work. These can be a little bit higher reps because generally they're single leg work, and they're not going to be as taxing on the nervous system and as heavy because or compared to, let's say, a heavy back squat or a heavy bar or box squat or trap bar deadlift, where it's going to be using a huge amount of muscles in the body and also putting a big load on the body, okay, body and mind really. So the robustness work, generally that could be around 5 to 8 reps with them, and again 2 to 4 sets. I would keep the sets roughly the same. Then at the end we can have prehab and core. So again, these could be specific exercises to you, areas of weakness for yourself, but I would always try and include some sort of core work there, like your pull-off presses, your dead bugs, your hanging knee raises, etc. And that would be put in at the end. So that's just a general structure of how I would structure out these in-season strength training sessions. And yeah, I think I've kind of worked around the whole board there. But hopefully that was helpful. As I say, it's really important that you get this right. If you can fall in that Goldilocks zone like I'm after walking you through there, then that will set you up for success in the in-season. And I will catch you in the next one.